There's a Utah football player that no one is talking about, but he's been absolutely key to Utah's 2-0 start, and he's going to be one of their key players for the rest of the season.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning into the show, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. My name is JT Wistrcill, and on today's Locked On Utes, we're talking about the news that Big Noon Kickoff, the game at least, we'll see about the pregame show, is coming to Salt Lake City officially. Also talk about Kyle Whittingham's comments, reacting to his weekly press conference as the Utah Utes are looking very strong. 2-0 right now, currently. Got to love what we're seeing out of this Utah team. And also just got to love what you're seeing out of the Utah individuals that have made this team so fun to watch so far. And there's been some guys who we've obviously heard about: Devin Dampier, Wayshawn Parker. Those are the guys that see all the headlines. I talk about them a lot in my videos, right? But there are some under the radar guys that it was a position group that had a lot of question marks at it. And this one guy in particular has been so impressive and so key to Utah's success so far this season. And that especially is in part Aliki Vimahi, but especially Jonah Lea'ea. The defensive tackle room, after losing Junior Tafuna, Samote Pepa, and Keanu Tanavasa, of course, that was a massive loss. To me, those were the three best defensive tackles that Utah had last year, right? Dallas Vakalaki looked good, but also the injury to Dallas Vakalaki in game one of this season made those guys' role even more important. So defensive tackle was a massive question mark coming into the season. You lose a guy like Vimahi, who was good as a freshman. You have Vakalaki, excuse me. You lose him, who was good as a freshman. Vimahi's been around forever, but is he ready to be not an every down type guy, but play a majority of the snaps? And then Jonah Lea'ea is a guy we just haven't seen a lot of, right? He played in 6 games last year, had a couple tackles as a reserve, and he just hasn't done much over the few years of his Utah career. But both those guys, Lea'ea and Vimahi, have been absolutely sensational to start the season. In fact, they've earned praise from Kyle Whittingham, who said the defensive tackles, especially the young ones, have been really good, according to a friend of the show, Josh Furlong of KSL.com. He said he's most impressed with Vimahi and Lea'ea in particular, who are the veterans in that room. Those guys have done a great job being leaders and set the tone. What Utah wants to do defensively all starts with their ability to stop the run and get you in third and long situations so that they can send the craziest blitz you've ever seen, because Morgan Scalley is a mad scientist when it comes to drawing up insane blitzes. But for this Utah team, it starts up front with stopping the run. And obviously, Utah's linebackers are the ones that make the tackle. They get all the oohs and ahs, right? Like week 1, Le'Veon Demouni had that big hit against UCLA. This last week, Jonathan Hall shooting through a gap, and he bats a pass down and ends up hitting off the QB, and then he turns it into an interception for himself. That all starts with what? The defensive tackles taking on the interior offensive line, gobbling up those double teams, holding them up, giving little to no ground so that those offensive linemen can't work up to the second level. And instead, the linebackers are shooting through and able to make those TFLs. The ability that Utah has to shut down the run has been absolutely impressive so far this season. The Utah defense has been incredibly impressive, and the defensive line as a whole obviously came in with massive question marks. John Henry Daly, Logan Fano, they answered questions right away about how good they were, and they earned the accolades because of what consistent pressure they were generating. But Utah's ability to completely stifle UCLA's run game was incredibly impressive too, with how the defensive tackle room has been playing. Carson Kavusi also stepping up, getting a sack week 1 has been massive. So tons of credit to this Utah defensive line. It's a huge part of the reason that when you look at scoring defenses across college football 2 games into the season now, Utah's 21st in the country. And a lot of those teams who are currently above Utah have not played very good teams. There's some that are legit, right? Like Ohio State being on there is legit. BYU is actually number 1 right now, technically, but I'm not. I want to see BYU actually play some real teams because, as we've already talked about a lot, I barely consider Stanford a P4 team. So I still want to see a lot from that BYU team. But Utah has done a very good job defensively, only allowing 9 points per game. They've only given up 19 overall on the season, which is incredibly impressive. And how about when you match that with this Utah offense, which is tied for the 8th best offense on a points per game basis in the country. Utah averaging 53 points per game right now. Once again, the Utah offense averaging 50 points per game. I know technically they've done this before with Cam Rising, but it feels like we are so far removed from those days. It's just so awesome to have this Utah offense back in action. So love what this Utah offense and defense are doing on both sides of the ball. We've talked a lot about Utah's offensive success due to their dominance in the trenches. Have been so impressed by the interior offensive line. So far, it's only 2 games in the season, and Utah has yet to play a good team, if we're going to just put it frank, right? Cal Poly, I don't even know if they're an elite FCS team based on, we talked with Bryson Lester of the Big Sky Conference, and based on the preseason poll, the answer to that would be no, even though it seems like they are improved, Mustangs are. UCLA, clearly not an elite team, but still hard to win a P4 game on the road for my money, even if that P4 team then went on the road themselves and lost at UNLV, a G5 team. But for me, Utah, they're 2-0. They have done a great job of answering the questions I had for them so far coming into the season. We need to see if they can do it against the best competition. That's what we'll get to see against Texas Tech. But the Utah questions, right? Or who's going to step along the defensive line? John Henry Daly, Logan Fano being 2 of the top guys, and the defensive tackles, as we just discussed, really solidified themselves. Wide receivers all across the board, right? It's not like one guy's dominant, but Tobias Merriweather can make something happen. Ryan Davis led Utah in receiving yards this week. Smith Snowden last week. Utah has lots of pass catchers they can throw out there. Dallin Bentley's emergence as well. Loved what I've seen from him, and they're still working on Larry Simmons. Hopefully, Darren Zipper gets back from injury soon. Creed Whitmore is another guy I'd love to see get some more targets with this team. So lots of guys that are able to step up there. And this Utah team, the interior offensive line, I had questions about if this is the best offensive line in the country. Those guys got to improve. They have. Tongai, Mokafisi, Kump, and I know Kump was out this last week, but Utah offensive line didn't miss a beat. I'm very impressed with how Utah has so far addressed their questions and concerns. And this is not a Utah team that's been perfect, right? Kyle Whittingham said as much that he's in his opening statement. He said he likes what they've seen so far, but no, they still have things to improve on. He said we got some, it wasn't as clean as they're hoping for, but still a solid game with 0 turnovers. He's always funny. He's always talking about his turnovers, right? We just know that with Kyle Whittingham is always going to be concerned about those turnovers. But when he's talking about like almost a complete game, I mean, yeah, Utah had to punt once or twice, but when you put up 60 points, not much you can say about it. Would I love it if Utah never had to punt? Of course, especially against an FCS team. But at the end of the day, Utah is just a week removed from going 18 for 16 on third down, barely had to punt against UCLA. And for the most part, they absolutely shredded Cal Poly. A couple of miscues and mistakes and penalties. Outside of that, this Utah team is money. I love where this Utah team is at right now in week 2 of a 12-week marathon. And we've seen several Big 12 teams, if they were runners in that marathon, already stumble. Some have basically disqualified themselves. Cough, Oklahoma State by getting beat 69-3. Technically, that loss doesn't disqualify you, but it feels like it definitely should. And it feels like it might have set that program back years, or maybe this program was set back last year by years, and they just didn't realize it yet. But really impressed and pleased with the progress that Utah is making. Kyle Whittingham clearly is as well. Wants to see, hey, continue to get those wide receivers involved. Let's see how the Utah offensive line does against a really good Texas Tech interior defensive line and a good Texas Tech offense. Are Utah's tackling woes the thing of the past? They tackled well against Cal Poly. UCLA is much better playmakers than Cal Poly, even though the Mustangs had a couple guys, right? But that's something that's just going to have to continue to watch and monitor, and we'll see if Utah can continue to build on what they've done as they get ready to take on Wyoming up in Laramie this week. But before we get to that game, there was some exciting news that dropped, and it's that Utah is going to be hosting one of the premier game time slots in college football. What am I talking about? I'm going to tell you in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Guys, I am so fired up to have college football back, and it's time to fuel up and turn it up energy-wise with 5 Hour Energy transfusion because, you work hard during the week. You might need that extra boost to get through Saturday and stay up for watching all the games. That's where 5 Hour Energy has your back with their grape, ginger, and lime-flavored shots that bring the iconic taste of golf course favorites to a non-alcoholic boost, perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends like watching games. It's a hole-in-one when it comes to the energy game for your friends. Whether you're on the course or just need something to push you through the day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green or your couch or having to leave the game. What's the craziest thing that's happened to you with golf? Probably wouldn't have got there if you didn't have that extra energy and motivation to keep going. And 5 Hour Energy can help give you that extra kick you need for the back nine. Golf is all about good timings, good times with good people, and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev card. Tee up that trip. Visit that's FIV-EH-win.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st. You can enter right now. Just buy Snap and enter for a chance to win your dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA when you head over and sign up for 5 Hour Energy sweepstakes today. Today's show is also brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. College football is back. NFL football is back. What a glorious weekend it was in the sports world. And FanDuel is making sure you're ready for all the kickoffs each Saturday, Sunday, or whatever game day is. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. With FanDuel, it's easy. I mean, it makes every game more exciting, right? Whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup, FanDuel has you covered. I was fired up to watch my Minnesota Vikings win. JJ McCarthy looks legit, so I'm going to be checking out and seeing how they're going to do in week 2. They get the Falcons on Sunday Night Football, NFL, college, whatever it may be. You can head over to FanDuel today and get in on all the action. NBA season right around the corner. We got MLB playoffs about to get underway too. So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com, to place your first $5 bet today at FanDuel.com. The Utah Utes are starting to get a little bit respect from the national media because one of the premier game slots in college football is Big Noon Kickoff. We can argue about why and actually if it is that great to play there in a moment, but it's no doubt that one of the most hyped games leading into the week is Fox's premier primetime game, or not primetime, but their premier game event that they market, and that is Big Noon Kickoff. And Big Noon Kickoff, the game that they go to every week, is going to be a Utah destination here in the very near future. Not this Saturday, but the following one. Utah on September 20th will be hosting 21st ranked Texas Tech. And I do think Tech, Utah are both going to be in the top 20 by the time that game is played. And that is a game that Big Noon Kickoff is more than likely the pregame show is going to be there. But for sure, their top crew is more than likely going to be there, barring something crazy. It's looking like that game, Texas Tech versus Utah, is going to feature Joel Klatt, Gus Johnson, Jenny Taft, and it's going to be at noon Eastern time, so we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But this is massive for the Utah Utes to score this premier game on one of the top networks. Yes, Utah played UCLA at 11 p.m. Eastern time. What's the problem? It was at 11 p.m. Eastern time. And I will say this, because this is the same thing for a lot of you are just frustrated that this game is at noon, right? Because it doesn't allow you a chance to tailgate. And also just a 10 a.m. kickoff is weird. I am not debating that at all. But, while this may be worst for the fans, I think this game is better for Utah's brand. I want Utah to play in a game that will allow the people who live on the East Coast and don't follow and watch this team. I want Utah to get more respect and earn what they've been given. And they have a great opportunity to do that if they can beat a surging, not just Big 12 team, college football team. To me, Texas Tech clearly a contender in the Big 12 conference as we stand here today. And Utah is going to have a chance to face off against them and beat them when they host them. It's very hard to win in Utah. A reminder, Utah, I know this is a massive caveat whenever I say it, but it's still just true. Utah has not lost a game in which the starter they projected to be that guy began the season and ended the season since 2017, right? They lost over the last couple of years some home games, especially, last year was a disaster in so many ways. And even the year before that, right? Bryson Barnes lost against Oregon, but Bryson Barnes wasn't the starter. Cam Rising was. So when this Utah team has their guy, they're pretty incredible. And this team, I think, has a chance to continue to elevate. And I'm so excited that Big Noon is recognizing what a great opportunity this is. And I want the rest of the country to recognize what a great opportunity this is. I love that Fox wants to showcase Utah, Texas Tech, the Big 12. This is a big game for the Big 12 to me because you are on national TV. So often in this time slot in the past, what Fox would do is they would just go to whoever Ohio State is playing. They would just go to whoever Michigan's playing. And it's so boring because a lot of times it'll be like Maryland and they'll beat them by 30. Utah's going to do well in this game, I think, but I don't think they're beating Tech by 30 by any stretch of the imagination. So I love that they picked this game. And we'll get other night games on the season. I understand why fans want that. A night atmosphere is truly special. But the opportunity to play on national TV in what is genuinely, to me, the second best time slot offered for network television. I shouldn't say that way. I should say the second premier game option. Number one to me is that SEC primetime ESPN. It's normally SEC, but ESPN does their game of the week. It's usually like whatever Herbie and Fowler are on. It'll be at 3:30, but a lot of times it's 7:30. That is usually like the premier game to play in. Outside of that, though, it so often is the Fox game, right? That time slot is where we saw Ohio State, Texas already. And not this week, but the following one, it's going to feature Utah against Texas Tech. And I am fired up for it. And I am fired up for people who are channel surfing on the East Coast who are like, oh, I've heard good things about Utah. They were the team that beat Nico and Tennessee week 1, but I want to tune in and watch them, that they'll get to see this team. The whole country will be up and watching. So many people, because of their game day coverage and responsibilities, having to be at their games by noon Eastern time, they're not up when Utah is kicking off at 11 p.m. Eastern time instead of 12 p.m. Eastern time. So it's just a massive difference there. And I want Utah to get that national recognition, get that respect. And yes, I'm down to sacrifice a home game if it means we get to be on Big Noon Kickoff to hopefully have the college football, the Big Noon Kickoff pregame show there, right? Urban Meyer coming back to Utah. That'd be awesome, right? You know, Matt Leinart, Brady Quinn, Mark Ingram, that whole crew. It'll be awesome having them, that atmosphere, that scene, an opportunity to have your campus and your college spotlighted on a level that it doesn't get to be unless College Game Day is there. And I don't think Game Day is probably going to come to this one with Big Noon there. Probably will go somewhere else. So if you're not going to get College Game Day, getting Big Noon is a massive win because it's a program and a show that's going to spotlight your campus, and then it's going to put your game on one of the top slots. So I am absolutely willing to sacrifice a night kickoff for that opportunity to have the brand it is Utah football elevated by Fox, saying we want you to be our game of the week, which is awesome. Just last week, they chose Iowa State. They went to that rivalry game, and it was an epic one. And I think Tech versus Utah is going to be epic. And I'm excited that the Big 12 feels the same way. They could have gone to whatever, they don't really touch the SEC, but they could have gone to whatever Big 10 matchup, right? That isn't great. And instead, they want to give the Big 12 this opportunity. And I love that. And I totally agree too. Kyle Whittingham is excited about this opportunity as well, as they should be. To me, all Utah fans should be excited to be playing on Big Noon Kickoff. If you don't love the time, I totally get it. But you should at least be fired up about the fact that Utah is going to be on one of the top time slots for a college football game can be in the country. Kyle Whittingham having to play that game at 10 a.m. We have no problem playing early in the day. Just tell us what time kickoff is and we'll be there. That's how I feel as well. I mean, I have a hard time leaving a game night before a Utah game, right? I'm fired up. I'm ready for kickoff. I want to see how it's going to play out. I love watching this team. I get to watch them earlier in the game. That fires me up. And as I said, I totally get those of you guys who want this at night and want this game to be an opportunity where you can tailgate all day and get that night atmosphere. Those are often the best ones, but there's something special about that early noon slot as well. And I know it's not noon in the mountain time zone, but the country will be tuning in. That pregame show leading into it, that's a big deal. And this might be the best ranked matchup on at that time too. So you might draw the most eyeballs and win the early window, which would be huge for Utah. Kyle Whittingham said our fans are awesome, and we know they will continue to show the best home field advantage in the country. That is Rice-Eccles Stadium. Obviously, we'll have a big TV on in that time slot. So that's great exposure for our program. Right there, exposure for the program. That's what this is about. Utah is getting that great program exposure thanks to this opportunity. And I am fired up that Big Noon is coming to Utah. The noon game, hopefully the pregame show will be there as well. I don't think that aspect has been announced, but we know for a fact the first college football game on Fox in week 4 is going to be Utah, Texas Tech. And I can't wait. Love that we get it in one of the top game slots and times that college football has to offer. It's a big opportunity for Utah and their football program, and I love the opportunity they get to spotlight their tremendous university and program. So we talked a little about what Kyle Whittingham said, but he had several other interesting quotes and comments. What am I talking about? I'm going to tell you in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Game Time. College football is so back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. It's truly nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkouts. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about some great college football games for as low as $25. I recently went to games, P4 games, that were under $10 for my tickets. Only on Game Time was able to find deals like that. Also, they give you a panoramic view from your seat before you buy, so you know what type of a deal you'll be getting. You can take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. We got to hear from Kyle Whittingham in his weekly press conference. And how about Kyle actually getting pizza for the media members? He made the joke over Labor Day, like, where is everyone? I guess we should have offered pizza, basically. But Utah is gearing up for a week 3 game against the Wyoming Mustangs. And Utah had Coach Kyle Whittingham in another press conference media availability. So talked about a couple of his quotes so far, but let's continue to recap Coach Witt's press conference. You know, he said asked about Wyoming, right? He said that they're no strangers as well. Like, you know, you don't really know exactly what you're going to get still early in the season. At times we have an idea, and they do have Justin Stevenson, he mentioned, who transferred from there last season. He said that Wyoming's no stranger to the coaching staff, but nobody really knows exactly what they're going to be doing. He was asked about the whole QB2 thing. I did a little extra piece on that yesterday. It was just my second segment, but where he said that he was asked, like, hey, what's going on with the backup quarterback room? He said it's not necessarily changed, says they're just trying to find more about what Bird Ficklin is. And he thought Bird did a great job, but so far there hasn't been any change yet. The depth hasn't changed. So still 2A, 2B with Isaac Wilson, I guess, being 2A and Ficklin being 2B, but it could be Kyle Whittingham just saying his stuff, since they also mentioned the potential of redshirting Isaac. So hard to know exactly what our crazy Uncle Kyle is thinking in this one. Kyle Whittingham was asked about the 1-2 running back punch. All these coming to us from Josh Furlong at KSL.com. And he said that Wayshawn Parker and Naquari Rogers have just been great. They're getting a ton of rushing yards, so no need to narrow it down to one right now. And, you know, he loves that others have been able to add a little bit of rushing production too, right? Whether that's Smith Snowden in the Jets sweep game. That's Hunter Andrews at times. Obviously, Devin Dampier, Nate Johnson a little bit as well. Utah has multiple guys that they can hand the ball off to and produce yards, whether between the tackles or running off the edges. But I do love that 1-2 punch of Wayshawn and Naquari Rogers. Wayshawn, that home run hitting speed and ability. We saw it on the first play in the first drive in the passing game when he got that check down to the outside. Coverage bust by Cal Poly, and he was gone. The first Bird Ficklin drive of the second half, they handed off to Parker, and he exploded up the middle. And Rogers just continues to be a sledgehammer while showing off some shiftiness as well, too. So I thought that was a big thing there. Kyle Whittingham was also asked about the progress the wide receivers are making, and he said they are moving in the right direction, but they still need more, which I totally agree. They want to get Tobias Merriweather more involved in this offense, and they have yet to be able to do that to the full effects that they want to. So I do want to see Utah to continue to evolve their wide receivers more, let Tobias Merriweather cook, let a lot of these guys cook. Love what Smith Snowden, Ryan Davis are showing so far, but there's room to get more of these guys on the outside involved in what Utah is trying to do. He did say J.J. Buchanan didn't get to play a lot last week because he was under the weather. And that's a bummer. I actually thought J.J. Buchanan was going to have a nice game last week. So unfortunately, we didn't get to see him, but we're going to get to see a lot of J.J. Buchanan based on how he looked against UCLA. What a tremendous season it's looking like it's going to be for the true freshman. Also, then you talk about what Jonathan Hall was able to do. He was asked about, and he said he's just doing exactly what they hoped that he would do last year when they moved him from linebacker to safety. You know, they love his physicality. He's becoming more and more comfortable at linebacker. I think he's a guy that he does have another year left of eligibility, so he's just building on some strong play this year. And then the following year, I think he's going to be the best linebacker that Utah has on this roster. Utah will lose Lander Barton after this year. They will lose Le'Avani Damuni after this year. And Jonathan Hall is going to be that best linebacker. He made an incredible play against Cal Poly when he batted that interception to the quarterback and then himself. And he is just a heat-seeking missile flying all over the field. He looks more comfortable on this defense and more comfortable at linebacker. And the results have been devastating for the opposition. I was a big fan of Jonathan Hall ever since his safety debut against Northwestern and loved what he's continued to show a linebacker this year. He had some growing pains last year, but I'm a big Jonathan Hall guy. Never sold my stock and loving what he's showing so far this season. So really excited to see the progress that he is able to and continues to make as well. Kyle Whittingham was also asked about how well John Henry Daly's been performing so far, and he said, hey, nobody loves football more than him. He's a great leader for us. He's really developed into a good player. And that's an absolute fact, because I don't know about you guys, but I didn't have John Henry Daly on my bingo card this early in the season being Utah's sack leader. We heard he was winning a lot of the one-on-ones, but I still thought Logan Fano and especially a lot of the transfers Utah got, a Lance Holtzclaw, even to Jackson Jones in some ways from Oregon, just seemed like they were going to be guys who were going to step up. And instead, it's some of these other guys that Utah have. It has been John Henry Daly. Paul Fitzgerald's made some things happen. How about Cash Dillon rising up through the ranks that have impressed a lot? So Utah's defensive end room, an incredibly talented room already. They're showing. I had questions about them heading into the year, which I think was fair based on their lack of collegiate production at the P4 level. But Utah continues to just recruit and develop with the best of them in the country. And that's why this Utah team is going to have a chance to continue to be one of the best teams in the country. I think the sky is the limit for what this Utah football team can accomplish this year. I think they're more than capable of winning the Big 12. I think they're the best team in the Big 12. I've said that before, right? I would love to see Utah versus Iowa State in the Big 12 title game. Those look like the two best teams to me right now. Although Texas Tech is going to have a chance to prove it could be them when they make that trip up to Salt Lake City and play in Rice-Eccles Stadium. Can't wait for that game. So happy Big Noon is going to be there, and so excited to just continue to get to talk about this Utah football team each week. Feels like it's going to be a special season. And with the talent Utah has on both sides of the ball, quarterback, running back, offensive line, the defensive players, and an improving pass-catching unit, watch out for good old Utah. I think they're one of the, for me, I probably have them in the top 10 right now. I understand why people don't. I think they belong in the top 15. They're going to continue to rise up the rankings. I feel great about them winning the Big 12 right now. They'll have a great shot. Like Iowa State, Texas Tech, we said, still really good, but I feel good about where Utah is at currently, and they'll have a chance to knock off a CFP contender with the talent that Utah possesses in the trenches. But that's just how I feel about it. Let me know how you guys feel about it in the comments below. Also, if you're in the market for a second listen every day, check out Locked On College Football and Locked On Big 12. Don't forget, too, we have Locked On College Football, or we have Locked On College Football Kickoff. It's available on Fire TV, your ultimate college football weekly preview, hosted by Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12, who leads the coverage alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holloway, and Locked On's local expert of college football preview. Only Locked On can deliver. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes, and we hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we continue to get you ready for Utah taking on Wyoming.